Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today is Monday, which means it's time for an episode of Loadout, the series where you guys, the viewers, get to pick a gun and customization for me to use. The way you do this is you leave a comment down below letting me know what kind of weapon and accessories you'd like me to run with, and I will pick one of the top rated comments for the next episode. Today's top comment comes from Sir Raposo. He says the D-Day Loadout, M39 EMR, similar to the M1 Garand, M1911, the Colt 45, works every time. First aid pack, medic bag is too expensive, we are in a war, son. No gadget 2, smoke grenade, don't let the Germans see you, bayonet, and defensive perk. Good luck, LevelCap. Now, although he didn't list any attachments for this gun, I assume that means he wanted me to run it naked. No attachments whatsoever, no improvements whatsoever, and that definitely makes it look the most authentic, the closest to the M1 Garand from World War II. And I did make one small adjustment to this loadout which visually doesn't change the appearance of the gun much, and that is the angled foregrip on the front end. If you look very closely, you will see that there is an angled foregrip, and this is just going to reduce some of my recoil a little bit because this loadout was very hard to use, and the only way that I was really able to down a lot of opponents was to spam fire this weapon, and without the angled foregrip that was going to be an even harder task. Now, for those of you not really familiar why we're using the M39 EMR to simulate the M1 Garand, it's that the M14 was essentially a replacement for the M1 Garand, a improvement upon the design, and then the M14 went through a lot of modifications over the years and eventually became the M39 EMR, which is just a modified M14. So lineage-wise, the M39 EMR is pretty much as close as we can get to the M1 Garand, and while using it, it was actually a lot of fun. It felt very authentic. The iron sights are really what give it that authentic feel when using this weapon, and it would be really cool to use this gun in a server that was more World War II themed and you had guns that sort of reflected those World War II style loadouts, because going up against people with fully automatic assault rifles using this gun with iron sights is very difficult. Normally the M39 EMR is actually pretty decent and I can actually range people very well, but the iron sights make my ranged accuracy and my ranged effectiveness much less, so it's very hard to do as good at range with this weapon, so I kinda am forced into a medium range engagement scenario. And that's where you're gonna start to have issues with this weapon, because at medium range most guns can do pretty well. In fact, they can do a lot better than the M39 EMR. The further the range to your target, the bigger advantage you have. As soon as you start hitting those medium range engagements, all of a sudden most people start to out damage you, outperform you with your weapon. In close quarters you may as well use your sidearm, because frankly you can pretty much out damage your primary weapon with most sidearms in CQB. So the M39 EMR really doesn't do very good damage in CQB. You want to maximize your range whenever possible. It's a little bit tricky to do that on some of the final stand maps depending. Some of them can seem pretty spammy. Again, that's a very difficult place to use the M39 when you're up against people with fully auto weapons. But luckily with the addition of the angled foregrip, I'm able to spam fire this weapon enough, and if I get lucky, I'll get a body shot and a headshot for a 2-shot kill. Otherwise, it's going to be at least 3 shots to down your opponent. Taking a look at the Simthic stats here, you'll see that we have a maximum damage of 45 and a minimum damage of 38. Now, one of the big differences and one of the things that I strongly disagree about weapon balance in BF4 compared to BF3 is that most DMRs in BF3 did 50 damage maximum, meaning in close quarters, even if you didn't get a headshot, you could down somebody in 2 shots. And if you got lucky enough in extreme close quarters, you could get a 1-shot headshot kill. Right now, DMRs are one of the least effective weapons in close quarter combat. It's not to say you can't get kills with it, but anybody who knows what the heck they're doing in CQB, they know where you are, you're not going to win that firefight unless you get supremely lucky. A nice thing about this rifle, however, is that it has very fast bullet velocity, so moving targets, long range targets are certainly going to be a cinch to hit. Again, you're not going to really be able to take advantage of that quite so much with the iron sights as you would be able to with something like a 4x optic, like an ACOG or something of that nature. In fact, my preferred loadout with this gun would definitely be an angled foregrip and ACOG, and you could really just play around with the barrel modifier however you want. A flash hider would probably be a pretty ideal setup for this rifle. And with the addition of the new target detector, I would certainly slap that on there as well. I've made it pretty clear in a lot of my videos, I'm not a fan of laser sights overall, so target detector is one of my favorite replacements for them on carbines and DMRs. Now when it comes to the sidearm of choice in this kit, the M1911, I'm certainly a fan of the gun historically, and I definitely liked it in Battlefield 3. When it comes to the 1911 in Battlefield 4, there's just a lot of other really good alternatives. Also, the 1911 in BF4 has lost one of the bullets available in its magazine. Now, traditionally the magazine can only carry 7 rounds, and that is accurate in the Battlefield 4 version of the gun. However, you can buy slightly extended magazines or double stack magazines that are able to essentially fit one more round in a traditional 1911, and I guess that's just what they were doing in Battlefield 3, but that one extra round really made a big difference since you do have a very limited ammo capacity to begin with. Also in Battlefield 4 you have other alternatives like the Compact 45, which has more bullets, does the exact same damage, or you also have the Deagle and a whole bunch of other weapons out there that have even more rounds and do even more damage. So it's harder to make a case for the 1911 in BF4, although authentically it is still a very cool looking pistol. And statistically speaking, you actually have a higher chance to win a one-on-one firefight in close quarters with the 1911 than you do with the M39 EMR, which is a good excuse to switch to your sidearm in CQB, but it's also a good example of just how bad the M39 EMR is when your sidearm out-damages it in close quarters. I did play a lot of Operation Whiteout on TDM in Domination, which is a great sniping map, and unfortunately it put me at a little bit of a disadvantage since I didn't have any sort of optic on this gun. I do, however, want to come back to Operation Whiteout with the M39 EMR, put a 4x scope on there and see just how well this gun can do in that situation. Anyway, that pretty much wraps it up for this episode of Loadout. I can't recommend this loadout to anybody who wants to play really seriously, but again, for a thematic loadout, it is pretty fun to use. As always guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave your loadout comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time. This is LevelCap signing off.